Good morning, everyone. I'm Eliza Hanverana, and I will discuss the entrepreneurial process and options. I'm here to introduce you to the concept of launch ownership, as well as Timon's framework of the components needed to start your own venture. As with all industries or career path, we'd consider core skills and mindset that entrepreneurs develop to make them successful in the various type of entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurial process represents the progression entrepreneurs follow as they identify a possible opportunity and evaluate that opportunity to see whether it has potential, and if so, develop entrepreneurial strategy that will enable the opportunity to exploit it. After this, the entrepreneur can then pursue the necessary resources required to operationalize the business. The process is iterative, one and continues throughout the life cycle of the business. We're going to unpack the entrepreneurial process to illustrate and better understanding the elements that underpin the driving forces behind the process. There are different frameworks for comprehending entrepreneurship and the workings of it. In this course, we borrowed the late Geoffrey Timmons, who developed a simple framework for understanding the entrepreneurial process. The Timmons framework is based on three driving forces: the opportunity, the entrepreneur and the entrepreneurial team, and the resources required to take advantage of the opportunity. Now, the better the fit among these three forces, the more likely a business will perform. Entrepreneur knowledge and perception change over time, and nascent entrepreneurs with minimal experience may cycle through the various stages several times to achieve the best fits. Serial entrepreneurs, on the other hand, tend to use heuristic, their gut instinct, develop over time from patterns and trends experience to guide them through the various stages of the entrepreneurial process more quickly than other. The three forces of the entrepreneurial process do not operate in the vacuum. They exist in an environment characterized by dynamism, change, uncertainty, chaos, missing information, imperfection, and asymmetries of information. So entrepreneurship can be thought of as a dynamic process characterized by the interplay among the three main components that drive the entrepreneurial process, as reflected in the Timmons framework. In this course, we'll explore those three main components of the Timmons framework: the opportunity, the entrepreneurial team, and the resourcing. We acknowledge that opportunity in the eye of the beholder may be an opportunity for one person, may not be so for others. For example, the level of risk adversity differs among people, and this will have an impact on whether a particular situation is perceived as an opportunity or not. However, putting risk adversity levels aside, there is a range of common attributes that underpin all opportunities, and this is what we will focus on this course. In addition, we discuss the importance of an entrepreneurial team and exploiting particular opportunities. And a venture is typically only as good as the team that will execute the opportunity. If the new venture gets into difficulties, a more capable entrepreneurial team will recognize the signs earlier and develop the necessary strategies to adjust or pivot the direction of the company towards a more achievable goal. Simply having a good product does not ensure success. If the team is a good match for the opportunity and the opportunity is exceptional, then there's more likely that the resources necessary to develop the venture will flow. An important aspect that successful entrepreneur understand is that, with the exception of cash, you do necessarily need to own the necessary resources for developing your venture. What's more important is to be able to control these resources. To clarify this, we can use the example of a delivery vehicle for a business rather than buying these resources at a considerable outlay of cash. There are a number of other options available that will have less impact on the venture's cash flow. For example, to lease the vehicle or to gauge whether it would be feasible to outsource this factor. In addition, where possible, successful entrepreneurs try to use other people's resources, or OPR, rather than use their own. This can have the result of lowering the break-even point for the venture and provides greater flexibility if the venture begins to stall, since these resources can be more easily just. Here's a quick summary of Timon's framework. It provides insight into the entrepreneurial process and the driving forces that underpin this process. The better the fit between the opportunity, the entrepreneur, and the team, and the resources required, the more likely your business will have a greater chance of success. But it's not nearly about pulling these three components together, but how strategically you'll do this will provide greater insights to the underlying characteristics of exceptional opportunities, exceptional entrepreneurial teams, and there's the sorts of resource-related considerations that needed to be made as we progress through the course. Next is entrepreneurial options. There are three types of entrepreneurial options. First is the startup of a business. Second is buying an existing business, and franchising a business. First is starting a business. Involves many activities related to organizing the organization. The process includes generating of an idea for the enterprise, called concept development, researching the idea's potential for success, and writing a business plan. Someone who is starting a new business is called an entrepreneur. This person takes on the financial risk of an initiation, operation, and management of the business. Entrepreneur may want to establish a small local business, organized as a sole proprietor, a business owned and operated by a single person, or he or she may hope to one day grow his or her business into a large multinational business organized as a corporation. Starting a business of any size requires an investment. Entrepreneurs who want to build large companies or corporations often look to investors, called venture capitalists, to finance the startup cost in exchange for a share of ownership, called equity. Once the business is established, the entrepreneur may decide to raise more money or capital by selling shares to the public through an initial public offering, or IPO, which is the company's first sale of stock. Regardless of the size of a business, it must be unique in order to succeed. Many large, successful corporations began as small organizations with a business idea that was significantly different from anything else on the market. An entrepreneur must be assured that his or her business idea offers a unique good or service to customers. The entrepreneur must also have a sense of who his or her potential customers are and what products they might choose. Finally, the new business owner must have a plan for running and growing the company through its first year and beyond. Business plan may cover short-term goals ranging from 6 to 12 months and long-term goals ranging from 2 to 5 years. Next is I will discuss about buying an existing business or franchising. Starting a business from scratch can be challenging. Franchising or buying an existing business can simply the initial planning process. Know the difference between franchising and buying a business. Before you decide if one of these options is right for you, make sure you know the basic of franchising and buying an existing business. The main difference between franchising and buying an existing business is the level of control you'll have over your business. Franchising gives you more guidance but less control. A franchise is a business model where one business owner, the franchisor, sells the right to their business logo, name, and model to an independent entrepreneur, the franchise. Restaurants, hotel, and service-oriented businesses are commonly franchised. There are two common forms of franchising, which is the product or trade name franchising. The franchisor owns the company to the name of trademark of a business and sells the right to use the name and trademark to a franchisee. This style of franchising normally focus on supply chain management. Typically, products are manufactured or supplied by the franchisor and delivered to the franchisee to sell. Second is the business format franchising. The franchisor and franchisee have an ongoing relationship. This style of franchising normally focuses on full spectrum business management. Typically, the franchisor offers services like site selection, training, product supply, marketing plan, and even help getting funding. When you buy a franchise, you get the right to use the name, logo, and products of a larger brand. You'll also get to benefits from brand recognition, promotions, and marketing. But it also means you have to follow rules from the larger brand about how you run your business. Buying an existing business gives you more control but less guidance. Why? Because buying an existing business is exactly what it sounds like. The buyer typically takes over full ownership of the business. The largest advantage is having an existing blueprint that can include important factors like an established customer base, defined operating expenses, and full trained employees. Regardless of business type, also any kind of business could be bought or sold. When you buy an existing business, you typically get complete control over its direction. However, with no set vision, infrastructure, or external guidance, your business could struggle as you figure out the best way to run things. Consider 3 factors before franchising or buying a business. Through the business model differ. These are 3 common types to take that will help you determine whether you should franchise or buy a business. First is quantify your investments. Review your financial landscape and decide how much you're willing to spend to purchase and ultimately manage the business. This will help you determine that type of businesses or brands are best for your budget. Second is consider your talents and lifestyle. Be honest about your skills and experience as they can help you eliminate unrealistic business ventures. For example, if you prefer hands-on assistance, then franchising might be best for you. On the contrary, if you're an experienced business owner, you may want to consider buying an existing business. Lastly is review the full landscape. Look at the existing infrastructure and make sure you understand everything that comes along with the purchase. Don't be afraid to ask questions about contracts, leases, existing cash flow, and inventory. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to make a good, sound decision.
Mabuhay, I'm Jan Andular and I'm going to talk about the business model known as franchising. But before I start, let's define exactly what franchising is. In exchange for monetary compensation, franchising is a relationship in which a franchisor grants a franchisee a license to conduct business and provide support in organizing, training, merchandising, marketing, and managing. Franchising is a kind of marketing and distribution in which the franchisor offers the franchisee the right to operate a business, selling a product or providing a service under the franchisor business model, and using the franchisor trademark or brand. The first franchises date back to the Middle Ages before the Renaissance period, but nothing like that happened in 1850s. First commercial franchise was in US was in 1851. Isaac M. Singer founded the Singer sewing machine. He wanted to sell more of a modified sewing machine but didn't have enough money. Singer franchised after its success with sewing machine distribution. After World War II, business format franchising, the licensing of brand names, trademarks, and business concept became the dominant form of franchising. Ray Kroc, a milkshake mixer salesman, discovered the McDonald's Brothers small hamburger business in 1954, and it was one of the biggest franchising business right now. Now let's move on to the concept of franchising. Franchising is a sort of marketing channel. In fact, it's the form of a retail with the highest growth rate. In recent years, franchising has been a major contributor to the growth of retail. A franchise agreement is a contract between a franchisor and a franchisee that permits the franchisee to operate a retail shop using a name and format created and supported by the franchisor. The franchisee pays a flat payment and a royalty on all sales for the right to run a store in a certain area as stipulated in a contract. The franchisee is granted permission to use the franchisor's products, trademarks, merchandise, and general knowledge within a specified territory. The franchisee must operate the store according to the procedures outlined by the franchisor. The franchisor provides a support with store setup, advertising, and marketing instruction. To protect his reputation, even if the franchisor grants his franchise the authority to market his brand, he closely monitors all the quality of the services supplied by all of the franchisees. All franchisees contribute to the franchisor's advertising, product development, and system development expenses. Additionally, there are 5 qualities of a profitable franchise. The first of which is the business location. The location of the franchise should be easily accessible. It is preferable to locate your business in a location where there is no direct competition, as this could mean losing a major portion of your consumer base. If a franchise is situated in a favorable area, it will be undoubtedly increase the profits. Second was having the franchisor's assistance with the franchisee and familiarity with the operational procedures of the business, particularly in the early stages of franchising. Franchisees should provide initial training that is high quality and lasts anywhere from 1 day to many weeks. A common definition of franchising is more supported path to business ownership. A franchisor lowers the quality of the help he gives to the franchisee. The network as a whole is less likely to be successful. The third step was verifying the company's track record. When a brand has demonstrated success with the several franchisees, the likelihood of success for your franchise increases. A successful track record includes more visibility, strong customer participation, and a great financial report that shows how profitable the company is. Fourth, we determine whether the franchise lives up to its reputation. Reputation of the brand is a strong marketing asset and one of the most advantageous characteristics of a successful franchise. The franchisee must be aware of whether the franchisor's brand reputation is national or international, as well as track the business history and records. The franchisee must read online evaluation, consult with acquaintances, and always seek to learn more about the brand. The last characteristic was to have a strong media relations, as it will be easier to launch the firm wherever if media relations have been established. Good media relations may help a business to grow in the local market. An expert in media relations can help you contact your target audience and organize events and promotions to boost your brand's awareness.
So after the concept of franchising, next is how does franchising works. Franchising is a specialized form of licensing in which the franchisor not only leases intangible property to the franchisee but also insists that the franchisee agree to abide by the strict rules as to how it does business. It is a way for individuals to invest in an existing business model and gain a competitive advantage. In franchise relationship, the franchisors or the business owner has the proven business formula, method, and model. The franchisor then decides to license the business model and give the franchisor or the independent operator the right to distribute his product, implement his business techniques, to use his brand and trademark in exchange for a recurring payment, a percentage of gross sales, or a fixed fee. In franchising, the franchisor provides an existing business model, a brand operating system and process, marketing strategy, training and support, and in return the franchisees pay the franchisors this fee. It usually comprises an initial payment and then regular ongoing fees. So the franchise agreement in franchising typically entitles the franchisee to initial training, a startup package, store setup, ongoing support, national or regional marketing support, and the trademark license. A franchise fee is a one-time upfront payment that lets the franchisee own a branch for the right to operate and profit from a franchise branch of the franchisor's broader organization. It tends to vary from business to business, typically covers a franchisee's right to use the element like franchisor's business model, products, and intellectual property. So after paying the fees, the franchisee is now free to use the franchise-specific resources covered by the franchise fee. So the franchisee is investing in a proven system with all the experience and knowledge of the franchisor. That could be an easier and quicker way to get a return on investment than starting up a business from scratch. In franchising, there's also limitations and rules. The franchisee will have to operate their business according to the rules and processes that's set out by the franchisor. After all, the tried and tested formula is what has made a business a success. A franchisee who follows the rules can run their business for the length of the franchise term. It could be 3 years, 5 years, or longer. And at the end of the term, the franchisor may be able to renew the franchise agreement, but this isn't always the case for franchisor success. The good communication with franchisor and a great attitude to the business will really make a difference. Franchise success is dependent on many things: the brand, business support, location, cost, and ultimately, the franchisee ability to manage and control the business. Franchises are successful as most have comprehensive franchise support packages, helping their franchisees with every aspect of their new business, from the early stages of establishment. Initial training, recruitment, and ongoing support is available throughout the life of their business until the very end. Franchising is based upon a long-term business relationship between franchisor and franchisee. Both must collaborate for the franchise business to reach its potential, and both have an interest in seeing their business succeed.
Mabuhay! I am Anna Marie de la Cruz and I'm going to discuss the steps to franchising a business. Let's assume that as an entrepreneur, you have decided to use franchising as a means of growing your venture. What step should you take to develop a franchise system? You as an entrepreneur should take 9 steps in order to successfully set up a franchise. The first step is to develop a franchise business plan. The franchise business plan should follow the format of a conventional business plan and should fully describe the rationale for franchising the business and act as a blueprint for ruling out the franchise operation. Particular attention should be paid to the location of the proposed franchise outlet. For example, is a Baskin-Robbins franchise that is successful in the food court of a mall, and an upscale area doesn't mean that it will be successful in less heavily trafficked strip mall in average income neighborhood. The step 2 is get professional advice. Before going too far, a potential franchisor should seek advice from a qualified franchise attorney, consultant, or certified public accountant. If the business cannot be realistic turn into a franchise, then a qualified professional can save a potential franchisor a lot of time, money, and frustration by urging that the process be stopped. If the business can be turned into a franchise, then it is advisable to get professional advice to help direct the entire process. The step 3 is to conduct an intellectual property audit. In this step, it is necessary to determine the intellectual property a company owns and to ensure that the property is properly registered and protected. All original written, audio, and visual material, including operating manuals, training videos, advertising, brochure, and similar matter, should be afforded copyright protection. If a firm has a unique business model that includes a unique business method, it should consider obtaining a patent for its business method. Thus, protected measures are vital because once a company begins franchising, its trademarks and business model and any unique business methods are disseminated, making them more visible to customers and competitors. In addition, a franchisor should make sure that its trademark is not infringing on the trademark of any. The step 4 is to develop franchise. In this step, we can note that at the beginning of the franchise evaluation process, a prospective franchisor should prepare the franchise disclosure documents, formally called the Uniform Franchise Offering Circular, and the franchise agreement. A franchise attorney can provide specific information regarding the content and format of this document. The step 5 is to prepare operating manuals. Businesses that are suitable for franchising typically have a foolish business system that can be fairly easily taught to qualified franchises. The franchisor should prepare manuals that document all aspects of its business model. The step 6 is to plan an advertising strategy and franchise training program. Prospective franchises will want to see an advertising strategy and franchise training program in place. The scope of each program should match the speed at which the franchisor wants to grow its business. The step 7 is to put together a team for opening your franchise unit. A team should be developed and prepared to help new franchises open their franchise units. The team should be well trained and equipped to provide the franchisee a broad range of training and guidance. The step 8 is to plan a strategy for soliciting prospective franchises. There are many channels available to franchisors to solicit and attract potential franchises. Franchise trade fairs, newspaper ads, franchise publication, social media platforms, and internet advertising are examples of these channels. The last but not least is the step 9. Help franchises with site selection and the grand opening of their franchise outlets. Location is very important to most retail businesses. So a franchisor should be heavily involved in the site selection of its franchises outlets. The franchisor should also help the franchisee with the grand opening of the franchise outlet. It is the most important for a franchisor to remember that the quality of the relationship it maintains with its franchisees often defines the ultimate success of the franchise system. It is to the franchisor's advantage to follow through on all promises and to establish an exemplary reputation. This is an ongoing commitment that the franchisor should make to its franchisee. That's all. Thank you.
Here are some actions associated in buying a franchise. First is do your homework. No business transaction should happen without you first researching everything you can about the opportunity, and that goes doubly for investing in a franchise. The franchise disclosure document includes great information about the brand, its franchises, and its revenue, so read it thoroughly. Second is get to know the franchise team. It's imperative that you find out everything you can about the team you'll be working with for the foreseeable future. Review the business experience, how long each individual has been with the franchisor, and any other details you can about key franchisor executives. Third is get clarity on the total investment necessary. Simply knowing the initial franchise fee doesn't give you the full picture of what setting up your new franchise, launching it, then sustaining it will actually cost. In addition to paying the franchisor an upfront franchise fee, you will also be required to pay ongoing royalty payments, which are typically a % of your monthly sales. Find out what these royalty payments cover and whether you have any other payments such as marketing fee that are separate. Fourth is build your budget. Once you know all fees and costs that the franchisor will charge you, you can add that cost like real estate, building modification, inventory, payroll, your own salary, and utilities. You're not guaranteed to make a profit in the first months of launching your franchise, so build your budget for the first year and include all expenses, including paying yourself. The last thing you want is to have invested so much and then run out of money, forcing you to sell or shut down your franchise. Fifth is know your net worth. One of the criteria a potential franchisor will assess to determine if you're a good fit for becoming a franchisor is your net worth. This refers to how much capital you can access to invest in your franchise. What this number tells franchisors is how well you manage money and how good you will be in terms of helping the franchisor build out its brand. If you have a high net worth, this tells the franchisors that you can be a bit picky about the opportunity you pursue, and they'll want you all the more. Sixth is consider forming a limited liability company or corporation. One of the smartest decisions a new franchisee can make is incorporating or forming an LLC for their franchise. Why? Both business code structures provide protection to the individual. Should the franchise be sued or have debts collected, the individual assets can be touched. There are some tax benefits to such as well. In fact, some franchises require an LLC to be formed as a condition of their franchise agreement. Seventh is open a separate bank account. Never mix your personal financial transactions with those of your franchise. It makes for an accounting and tax prep nightmare. One of the first things you should do before opening your franchise is to set up a separate business bank account and maybe a business checking account as well. You'll need your employer identification number as well as proof that you've incorporated or formed an LLC, so wait until you get approval in your business structure application before proceeding. 8 is know your financial options. Not every new franchisee has the funds to fully outfit a new business, and even if they do, it's often still a good idea to take out a loan to conserve cash. There are several financing options to consider depending on your credit profile, including an SBA loan, franchisor funding, or a line of credit. Ninth is choose your industry and franchise carefully. One big decision in selecting the best franchise is to decide what industry is the best fit. Ideally, you choose one you have experience in or are passionate about. Choosing an industry simply because you think it will make you rich fast rarely works. You're better off in a field that you know something about. Look at different franchises in the industry you land on to compare and contrast. What makes one brand more successful than another? It's imperative that you understand what makes for a successful franchise. And last but not the least is talk to other franchisees. One of the perks of the franchise disclosure document is where it lists the names, addresses, and telephone numbers of current and former franchisees. Take this opportunity to contact a few to get insight on their experience working with this franchisor. These are some issues associated in buying a franchise. First issue is the long approval processes. The franchisor and franchisee are a team. For a successful partnership, the brand has to be the right fit for the franchisee and the franchisee must be a right fit for the brand. Franchise agreements are also long-term relationships. 10 to 15 years contracts are the norm. It's absolutely essential to get right, which means oftentimes the approvals process can be long and intensive. Second is higher than expected operating cost. Aspiring franchises must be prepared to front a hefty sum of money to get the business off the ground. Business upfront licensing fees and of opening costs, the amount can easily break into 6 or even 7-figure range. Some example of common franchises and their startup costs according to Business Insider is the famous KFC, which has a startup cost of $1.4 million to $2.8 million plus $45,000 franchise fee. Another famous fast food that has startup cost of $1.2 to $2.2 million plus $45,000 franchise fee is McDonald's. Some franchisors even require aspiring franchises to have hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash on hand, which runs the bill up even more. Third is less control over the brand. Affiliation with beloved brands gives franchise owners an advantage in recognition and brand affinity. Multi-location restaurants are under a close eye in the media because of their presence nationwide. A slip up by one individual at one restaurant, big or small, can impact the performance of other locations. Fourth is not as much decision-making power. It's common for franchises to have promotions, new menu items, LTOs, and rebranding efforts mandated from the top. This is not a bad thing and changes aren't made in a vacuum. They're researched, piloted, and found to increase revenue and the profit win for franchises and the franchisor. It can be frustrating for owners who don't feel like they have the control over your business. They're the ones who are living it day in and day out. But that doesn't mean franchise owners' voices can't be heard. Fifth is the different regulations. If you're operating your franchise in a major city like New York, San Francisco, or Chicago, you'll need to adhere to an extra set of rules known as Fair Work Week laws, affecting the state of Oregon and the cities of Chicago, Emeryville, New York, Philadelphia, San Francisco, San Jose, Seattle. These laws apply to restaurants operating the location above that have anywhere from 20 to 56 plus locations worldwide and or employee count of 500 plus people worldwide. Criteria that franchise location almost always meet. These laws add significant changes to the way restaurants manage and schedule employees, requiring affected restaurants to compensate employees for last-minute shift changes, share schedule and at least 2 weeks in advance, and allow input on scheduling among other mandates. 6 is the high employee turnover. Overall, the restaurant industry has around a 75% employee turnover rate. However, franchises tend to see significantly higher turnover rates compared to the industry average, with fast food industry location turnover double that at 150%. Among the reasons for such high turnover is the constant demand for employees at these restaurants and the reliance on younger and less specialized labor pools, which typically have less incentive to stay at a franchise for years on end. Just like what Ryan C. Whitfield says, as people continue to come back into the hospitality workforce, restaurant owners need to think about implementing creative incentive plans that can help them get staff up quickly and then keep successful employees long term. And the last one is the potential for brand dilution. One last common franchise issue is market saturation of the same restaurant. Believe it or not, Chick-fil-A made more per location than McDonald's and Starbucks combined in 2020, according to this QSR report, and that's with 15% fewer operating days a week. There's a long list of reasons why, but the volume of location is certainly towards the top of that list. Chick-fil-A operates one store for about every 6 McDonald's or Starbucks and about every 10 Subways. With fewer stores, each Chick-fil-A becomes more unique and by extension draws more of a crowd to that specific location. If you're operating a franchise fast food restaurant, you can expect strong sales due to their brand recognition and convenience. But you should also be aware of your potential market share. This comes from knowing how close another restaurant with your same name and menu is. If there is an excessive number of locations of your restaurants in your city or town, this can take away from its novelty and potentially dent your sales. After all, being one of the 2 McDonald's in town seems a lot more financially enticing than being one of 7 McDonald's in that exact same time, doesn't it? That's all for today and thank you for listening.
For the side topic, Raymond Albert Crook was one of the famous entrepreneurs in tourism and hospitality industry. Ray Kroc was the CEO of the fast food company McDonald's from 1967 to 1973. He is credited with the global expansion of McDonald's and turning it into the most successful fast food corporation in the world. Raymond Albert Crook, popularly known as Ray Kroc, was an American businessman who brought about a revolution in the fast food industry, making McDonald's the biggest fast food chain in the world. He is once referred to by the Harvard Business School as the service sector's equivalent for Henry Ford. Crook but had a modest beginning. Initially, he sold various items such as paper cups, milkshake mixers, before coming in contact with McDonald's brothers, who ran a small but popular fast food joint in California. And at the age of 51, subsequently he acquired the franchise of a small-scale McDonald's corporation. He transformed it into one of the most successful fast food operation in the world. Ray Kroc eventually bought the company at the age of 59. He also utilized standardization to ensure that the McDonald's food products to taste the same in all the outlets. Kroc revolutionized the American restaurant industry with the new and developed operating and delivery system. By the time of his death, the chain had 7,500 outlets across the world with gross sales of $8 billion.